My material is not copyrighted. You can use mine any way you want.
This one's for you, Kent.
If you want to get any of my video materials, they're not copyrighted.
Check it out. You're a fucktard, aren't you, Kent? You're a fucktard, aren't you, Kent? You're a fucktard, aren't you, Kent? You're a fucktard, aren't you, Kent?
Then they tell the kids about the geologic column.
Huh? Oh, I forgot we were doing this today. Sorry, I guess my schedule is a bit messed up. I haven't been getting much sleep, what with the new baby and everything.
How many have ever heard that the different layers of the Earth are different ages?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know, my mind's a little fuzzy right now. Oh, so I heard you're out of prison now, by the way. That's cool, congratulations. As far as I'm concerned, you earned your time, but you also served your time. Keep your nose clean, and I'm sure you won't have to serve anymore. But even though you have new stuff, I'm gonna keep debunking this speech. I mean, I've seen some of that new stuff, and it's the same tired old crap you always said, so really what's the difference?
They show the kids Grand Canyon. Yes, boys and girls, this one says, over millions of years, the Colorado River has carved the Grand Canyon from solid rock. I'm sorry, but that is stupid, okay? I'll explain why.
That's not what's stupid. You know what's stupid? Old humanity theory. Yeah, that's right. It is impossible that humans have survived for thousands of years. I watched that baby tear its way out of its mother with its giant head and horns and claws, and there's no way that shit would have been survivable without epidurals and stitches and hygiene. And how the hell were people supposed to cut the umbilical cord before the invention of scissors? With their fucking teeth? Give me a break. And then this twitching, jerking, writhing little meat robot has like no immune system and it'll pretty much die if you look at it funny, and it lays there screaming so loud that it echoes through your cave so bad it cuts out your ability to hear anything higher pitched than a mastodon, so you won't be able to hear the saber-toothed tiger that's about to maul ya. And it does it all the damn time, like when it doesn't get milk for 10 minutes, or when it kicks off its own blanket. Oh, and by the way, if you use a blanket, then be prepared for the thing to cover its stupid face with it and suffocate because it doesn't have a survival instinct. I mean, I would almost say it has a suicide instinct. Put the little bastard down on the bed for 2 seconds and it immediately starts trying to crawl off the fucking edge. And it cries when it wants attention, and when it doesn't want attention, and when it's bored, and when it's shitting, and... Oh yeah, that's another thing. There's no way that people living in caves could deal with all that shit before we invented Huggies. No way, man. And then you stuff a pacifier in its mouth to try to shut it up, and it spits it out, and then it cries because it wants the pacifier. And the men are all like, look, you little shit, I've been hunting all day with my bare hands for the past 26 hours, and the women are all like, hey kid, shut up, I'm trying to, I don't know, pick some berries and survive this menstrual cycle while I try to get rid of these mosquitoes that'll kill us all with malaria next week. I mean, I'm not saying that it's cool to shake a baby, but I am saying that I can't see the rate of shaken baby syndrome being less than about like 90% in those days. And then the woman tries to feed it from her malnourished boobs, and it decides to breathe like an idiot while it drinks and fills itself up with so much air that it spits all that gross stomach milk back out all over itself and everything around it anyway, since its stupid stomach doesn't close properly yet. Especially if you don't sit there for like half an hour holding it in the sitting up position that's apparently one of the goddamn great mysteries of the universe to human larvae, instead of using that half hour to, you know, survive. And when they sleep, they always sound like they're on the brink of fucking death. But if you solve those problems and the little sack of crap doesn't manage to suffocate itself in its sleep and you manage to get a peaceful 8 hours so you feel like a champion in the morning ready to go kill a goddamn giant sloth or some shit, you look over at the baby and you find it's got a flat weird head now. No way, man. Humanity cannot possibly be that old. Human evolution is a lie. 6,000-year creationism is a lie. There's just way too much time there for us to have failed as a species, especially without modern medicine. And you know, even if the mother and kid survived it the first time, nobody would go through all that brutal shit a second time. After seeing the fucking war zone in that room, I just don't believe anymore that people actually have more than one kid. I know there are people who say they do, but maybe it's just a conspiracy to convince me that the species has existed for thousands and thousands of years. All those people are agents of the system. Maybe they're robots. Or demons. And they all have holographic kids so they can hide the truth from me. The only possible explanation is that the universe just popped into existence in 1972. It's the only thing that fits all the facts.
Kids, you need to learn this. This is a very simple thing to learn, and you'll go through life much further than many of these professors go. Make yourself 3 columns. Facts are in the middle. It's a fact Grand Canyon exists. The evolutionist has an interpretation of that fact, And the creationist has an interpretation of the fact. That's not part of the fact, it's an interpretation of the fact.
Really? Wow, that's great! I thought we had to explain the fact that the Grand Canyon exists, not just interpret it, and that the facts to be interpreted were the detailed geological features of the Grand Canyon and the surrounding area. But now that I know there's only one fact, which is that the Grand Canyon exists, and all I need to do is interpret it, I guess I can make up whatever answer I want. As long as it's not that the Grand Canyon doesn't exist. So let's see. Oh yeah, so the Grand Canyon was carved by Paul Bunyan dragging his axe. And Hudson Bay is the indent where Babe the Blue Ox used to sleep.
The evolutionist says the canyon formed slowly by a little bit of water and lots of time. The creationist says, oh no, we think it formed quickly by lots of water and a little bit of time. It's a fact the Earth has sedimentary layers. That's not a question. How did they get there? Well, the evolutionist says these layers formed slowly over millions of years. The creationist says, no, these layers are all from the flood in the days of Noah.
So now we have some conflicting claims about why the Grand Canyon and the sedimentary layers exist. You said you're going to tell the kids something that'll be useful in life, so my guess is you'll explain a handy method by which they can determine which of two conflicting interpretations is most likely correct, which they can use to judge the accuracy of the many claims they'll hear during their lives. You know, something like looking at the details to see which interpretation fits them better, or making predictions and seeing if they're correct. Those are just examples, of course. Your method probably won't include those because those are science, and science supports the lots of time interpretations, which isn't quite the desired outcome.
Now, it seems like the professors are always trying to erase the line between their interpretation and the fact and make their interpretation part of the fact column, and it's not.
It is if it's correct. I mean, it's obviously not correct since the world has only existed since 1972, but this joke is getting old already.
And I think I can demonstrate Grand Canyon was not formed by the Colorado River. I was in a debate recently, and this professor said, Dr. Hovind, you're so stupid. Obviously, it took millions of years to form the Grand Canyon. I said, well, sir, I've seen Grand Canyon many times. I taught earth science for 15 years. I've studied it intensively.
Seeing the Grand Canyon isn't exactly what I'd call a unique experience, Kent, and it has no relevance to your knowledge of geology. And you know what? I'm pretty sure you've studied nothing intensively. In fact, I've yet to be convinced that you can even read. And as for you teaching earth science for 15 years, look, I don't really like bringing up your hilarious credentials all the time, but you bring them up all the time, so you really don't leave me a lot of options. Stop running your mouth about your garbage credentials to establish your non-existent authority to wow your audience of idiots, and people will stop commenting on it so much.
If you don't like my degree, then call me Kent or Bubba, and let's get back to the topic.
So Bubba. Weird, I thought that was the name of your cellmate. To start, Bubba, earth science certainly would not have been the exclusive focus of the high school science classes you claim to have taught.
My name's Kent Hovind. I was a high school science and math teacher for 15 years.
On the freekenthovind.com website, which is where your 2peter3.com domain redirects to, I found a link to your 2005 affidavit, link in the description, in which you describe your teaching experience. I suppose you must find it accurate if it's linked on a site that's either your site or a site that you endorse. I can't quite figure out which. Either way, you're closely tied to the people that made it, Lonestar 1776, Racer X. The way you describe your experience in this document, it seems that the maximum range of years that you taught is 1976 to 1989, which is not 15 years. The first two of those teaching years were at a Christian school that you claim to have started, Bethel Baptist Academy. Then you switched to Faith Baptist Academy, where you ministered for the Lord as a teacher, which sure sounds like unbiased, evidence-based teaching to me. Then you switched to Longview Christian Academy, and finally to Calvary Baptist Christian School. People can make their own decisions about the probable quality of the education you provided, but in any case they should realize that none of these places are high schools, and even according to your affidavit, you never had any education that would qualify you to teach in a high school.
Just flew over it last week, as a matter of fact, twice. Got a perfect view of it going out to California and back, flying from wherever I was, Florida. That's where I live.
I'd complain about you citing your airplane flyover of the Grand Canyon as though it supports your expertise in geology, but I think it's actually a better credential than your PhD and teaching experience combined.
This textbook says, the Colorado River has cut through layer upon layer of rock over millions of years.
You held up the textbook while you were talking to the professor and said, "This textbook says this." Or did you forget that you were supposed to be telling another professor story?
Well, if you built a dam across Grand Canyon, it would take a lot of dirt or concrete, but if you could, okay, it'd be a huge dam. A giant lake would back up behind that dam, covering several states. That purple area is all drained right through the Grand Canyon drainage basin.
That purple area on the map is a really hideously inaccurate representation of the Colorado River Basin. Any lakes caused by damming the Grand Canyon would be considerably smaller than that, and pretty much the whole southern half of that area would not be involved. But if you put up a dam or two, I could see ending up with a couple lakes that combined cover some land in 4 states, although far from all of it. I mean, just by looking at a topographical map of the area, I can see where the water might be able to pool, forming what you call Grand Lake and Hopi Lake.
There used to be two big lakes, Grand Lake and Hopi Lake. The lakes are long gone.
I really have no idea what geologists think about that, and I don't care because it doesn't really matter right now, so go on.
This snow line tells a very interesting story.
Yeah, that's the Kaibab uplift, which as the name implies is land that rose gradually to a considerable height as land occasionally does, while water eroded its way through as water occasionally does, eventually resulting in the Grand Canyon. Oriented with the north roughly at the top, it looks like this.
In between these two red lines is snow. This is a picture from a satellite showing about 150 or 200 miles of the canyon area. Real wide shot. The river enters the canyon at the far right. The river is 2,800 feet above sea level. As it goes down through the canyon, the ground is rising up. It's called the Kaibab uplift, okay?
Yep, it's called the Kaibab uplift because the ground was lifted up over time.
The uplift is 7,000 or 8,000 feet above sea level. Interesting.
Why?
The river flows downhill. All rivers flow downhill. So as the river enters the canyon and flows downhill from there, when it gets to the 1,800-foot elevation mark, the top of the canyon is 7,000 or 8,000 feet above sea level, so it's over a 1-mile drop. Very impressive. Hole in the ground.
Yeah, impressive what a few very slow geologic processes operating over a shitload of time can do, eh?
But some points to ponder. I said to the professor, I said, "Sir, did you know the top is higher than the bottom?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Did you know the river only runs through the bottom?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Sir, the top is higher than where the river enters the canyon by 4,000 feet. Rivers don't flow uphill."
But it's right there in the name. Uplift. Geologists understand perfectly well that the top is higher and rivers don't flow uphill. They already identified it as an uplift before you came along to tell them. Nobody, or I should say nobody but you, has proposed uphill flowing water and none is required. What the hell kind of professor was this? Was it the professor of fish feeding from the second video?
There's no delta. Where's all the mud that washed out?
Right there.
There's no way that river made that canyon.
The Kaibab uplift is an uplift, and the ancient Colorado River Delta is too obvious for you to see, and therefore the river didn't make its canyon. Exquisitely argued, Bubba. I'd tip my hat to you, but it's a bit too tight.
Grand Canyon is a breached dam, a spillway that washed out. There was a lake, probably for some length of time after the flood, and got too full, and all that water went roaring through there. Probably carved that canyon out in a couple of weeks. Not millions of years.
The Kaibab is a high point in the region, even its southern slope where the canyon cuts through. Before there was even a chance for this natural dam to be overtopped, the water would have drained away through other areas. But even if the lake were in a giant bowl and had nowhere else to go but through the Kaibab, it isn't just a dam. I mean, let's get a sense of scale here. We're talking about a 30-kilometer wide, several thousand-foot high feature of the landscape. Just to overtop it would take an awful lot, and it wouldn't just wash it away. A 30-kilometer wide lump of rock isn't comparable to a man-made river dam or a levee.
Any farmer that's ever built a dam to hold water for his cows will tell you, once the water goes over the top of the dam, it's all over with. That's why they guard the levee like crazy during flood seasons, don't they? Get out there with sandbags. You don't want it to even get started. It's gone in a flash, okay?
Hey, by the way, if that canyon was formed because of a break in the dam, then why does it continue north of the dam? And for that matter, why are there rivers and canyons all over the dam placed to the north if that was supposed to be a giant lake and not a river system? Okay, but let's pretend for just a second that there's a reason to waste more time on this, even though to maintain my sanity, I have to believe it's just another bad attempt at a joke from you. So, the dam is breached. Water is crashing its way along a 50-kilometer diagonal path through this 30-kilometer wide plateau, obliterating everything. Of course, it's very well-mannered water, having been raised in a good Christian home in the sky before Noah's flood, and so it of course doesn't spread out at all when it gets past the barrier, even though there's nothing at all stopping it, especially considering the unbelievably huge force it must have to be able to carve out the Grand Canyon. No. This well-behaved water restrains its enthusiasm. It sticks to a nice narrow corridor, carving out a nice deep V-shaped canyon with sharply defined jagged features, even though floods don't do that, and I think you think it was supposed to be mud at the time, not rock, which would never end up with anything sharply defined after an event like that. And even if it were rock, jagged features would be dulled or destroyed by it. Pretty much everything that stuck out even a little bit would be destroyed. And it does this somehow, even though this requires it to push trillions of cubic yards of rock to somewhere. I'm not sure where, actually. I actually don't know if anyone's ever tried to explain that. But hell, call it mud if you like, even though that's geologically ridiculous. It doesn't change the fact that all that stuff had to go somewhere. And it definitely wasn't pushed out through the canyon to the ocean, since there was no canyon yet. Maybe the force was just so high that it launched all that shit out into space or something. So this seemingly unstoppable mass of water that can blast through trillions of tons of earth without difficulty continues politely along its little path. Occasionally, for no reason, making an impossible hard right or left turn for some reason, but on average heading west until suddenly it gets a little bit nervous about going that way. I mean, after all, if it keeps going that way, it might end up in LA or something. Ugh. And so it makes a good decision and decides to turn around and head back east for a bit. So somehow it exerts the huge amount of force required to change its course. But it thinks about it for a minute and decides, I've got the right stuff, I could be in the pictures. I hear Roland Emmerich will be putting out casting calls for floods for that 2012 movie in a few thousand years. And so it pulls real hard again and goes back to gouging out that canyon westward. But it lacks confidence. It was made fun of a lot by the other waters when it was growing up above the firmament. And so occasionally it thinks about heading east again and totally changes direction over and over and over. The stress and the internal conflict are so strong that it develops a bit of a bad case of split personality disorder, and some of its more prominent personalities decide they don't want to tag along anymore. Fuck this pussy. And they branch off and they head slightly backwards for a bit before they get bored and stop. And then, what the hell, you get the point. If anyone doesn't see how fractally wrong your assertion is at this point, there's just no reaching them. This is the dumbest thing you've said so far in this series, in fact. Nothing else even comes close. Not even the Texas-sized pig. Not even the first life form had to find someone to marry. Not even why didn't they evolve to live forever and then be happy. There's so much wrong with it that I'm not even able to keep track of it all anymore, so who knows if I mentioned everything. Probably not. I'm sure my commenters will have plenty more to say on the subject. It's like really good chewing gum, You can take just that one little piece of stupidity and chew on it for a couple days and it keeps its flavor, and when you get bored of chewing you can take it out of your mouth and stick it to the underside of your desk, and then later you can peel it off and chew it again, and somehow it's still got its original flavor and even a bunch of new ones. Fortunately, I have the luxury of being able to spend as much time as I like on every single dizzyingly idiotic sentence that comes out of your squeaky little face hole. And I also have the time to take a break for a couple hours, have a beer or two, and hit myself in the head with a hammer to fix all the neural overloads that were caused when I tried to dive to the bottom of the infinitely deep pool of stupid that is this breached damn claim of yours, which is fucking good because if I had to do your entire video in one go, I'm pretty sure I'd end up bleeding from the nose and eyes and ears. And yet despite that, somehow, there are still people out there who take you seriously. I mean, granted, they apparently all got stuck at the end of the line for brains and got stuck with the same shitty model as you have. When someone new comes onto my channel, their initial comment is pretty much always from the same very small pool of options, or at best some irrelevant crap defending theism or Christianity or the Bible or simply preaching, instead of, addressing any of my points. For example, look at the number of people who started out with one of these few stock comments criticizing me for wearing a mask. Whew. Original. Striking. Wow, that's a clever one. Oh, that's so witty. Actually, that one stings a little. Good job, guys. Hell, I even got this from that tittering Twitter pate, Lonestar 1776, that guy who kept calling you in prison.
There's a guy that dresses up in a suit and puts a black stocking over his head. I don't know if he puts the black stocking over his head because he was cursed with such an ugly face or because he's a coward, one of the two.
And of course, as you would expect, it only applies to people he doesn't like.
Now, having said that, there's a guy that's anonymous. He's put together a website in the last, 72 hours. I mean, he's been working his butt off. I want to give him credit, but he wants to remain anonymous. So hey, I got to respect that. Maybe he's got a valid reason,
I don't know if he maintains a double standard because he was cursed with being an idiot or because he's an asshole, one of the two. But he don't want to be consistent, so hey, I got to respect that. Maybe he has a valid reason, Ugh. Fuck, that accent makes my whole face go numb. Yeah. Yeah. Peter Piper picked a Pokemon. Peter Piper picked a Pokemon. Peter Piper picked up. Yeah, okay, I'm good. So for the record, Lonestar, the reason I wear the stocking is to hide the severe burns I sustained at the stake in 1538 during the witch trials in Denmark, and frankly, that comment on my looks just triggered me, you insensitive clod. Anyway, I wouldn't bet money that a single one of Kent's fans will watch this far into the video, but if one does, here's some advice. Attacking everything except the argument only makes you seem like you got nothing. Now obviously, don't get me wrong, insults are a ton of fun. And as far as I'm concerned, it's totally legitimate to sprinkle into the discussion as flavor. That's why I do it so much. Do it to me back. But if you want to make an impact, you really need more. All that actually matters in the discussion of facts and reasons are the facts and the reasons. Whether I am or am not a pathetic masked loser coward or an Illuminati shill or a furry or a dish towel is irrelevant to the fact that I've made a reasoned argument about why I think Kent is wrong. I know that some of you have enough intelligence sparkling in the benighted recesses of your brains to realize that.
Absolutely impossible for that river to have made that canyon.
If by that river you don't actually mean the river, you mean the water flowing out of the lakes, then yeah, you're right, it couldn't have made that canyon. My little baby Elzebub can't even talk yet, but could tell you that.
But they tell the kids, the Colorado River made this canyon slowly over millions of years. I'm sorry, that is stupid. That can't possibly be true. They need to learn the facts.
Oh, I guess you're actually on board with considering more than one fact at a time. As long as it's only the facts that those few ounces of gray sludge under that thick skull of yours make your worldview look less primitive and pathetic.
Charlie Lyell, back in 1830, he was a lawyer from Scotland. Somebody calculated one time that if all the lawyers in the world were laid end to end around the equator...
No way am I letting you finish that joke. Not because I'm especially fond of lawyers, but because I don't feel like having to pretend to attempt suicide again.
Charlie Lyell hated the Bible.
Do you mean hated like, from hell's heart I stab at thee kind of hated, or do you mean geology disproves Noah's flood and I'm uppity enough to say it kind of hated? But really, Bubba, seriously, would you please stop talking about geology? I mean, I know that it's an important field of science that's contributed a lot of knowledge, but even so, it's fucking rocks. I can't get enthusiastic about rocks. It's so completely not my thing. I mean, they don't do anything. They sit there. They just be rocks. That's all a rock does. It bees a rock. It's the same reason I didn't want to talk about polonium halos before. Because rocks. I hate rocks, Kent. I hate them like Charlie Lyell hated the Bible. And you just get to stand there telling people, hey, you know rocks? People who like rocks are so stupid. But then I actually have to come up with something not totally worthless to say about them. And this shit always comes up with creationists. Hey, did you know these rocks over here are Noah's Ark? And these ones over here too. And these ones over here too. Hey, how about these rocks? Did you know those came from Noah's flood? Hey look, I found a rock under another rock. Did you know that evolutionists say rocks can't go under other rocks ever? It's enough to make a guy want to stop debunking creationists altogether and make videos about something else instead.
In 1830, he wrote this book right here. Oh, I got it down on the table. I picked up the wrong one. Principles of Geology. Here it is on this table. Charlie Lyell wrote this book, 1830. In this book, he mocked at scriptures. He hated the Bible. You can see it mocking all through they're here.
What, for arguing against Noah's flood and stuff? That's not mocking the Bible. This is mocking the Bible. Yo got so old, his cake got so many candles, even he can't count them. Yo got so slow, it took literally forever to decide to make a universe. Yo got so ugly, you've been hiding for 6,000 years. Yo got so stupid, he had perfect foreknowledge and was still surprised when Eve fucked up. Yo got so...
Can you go ask the neighbor for some sugar, please? I'm stuck here with the baby.
Ugh. Sorry guys, I'll be right back.
Hey, Oracle.
What is it?
Some guy's here.
What guy? How am I supposed to know if you just tell me it's a guy?
It's some jagoff human in a hat. Weird face, funny glasses. I think he's one of your friends.
I don't have any friends! What does he want?
How should I know?
You didn't ask him what he wanted?
It's not my job to ask people what they want.
Go ask him what he wants!
Fine, go ask what he wants. What do you want? He says he wants sugar.
Sugar? Where do we keep the sugar?
You don't know where we keep the sugar.
No.
You use enough of it.
That's because it's sweet and delicious and you get it for me!
Fine. For future reference, it's on the top shelves.
You put it there on purpose, didn't you?
I can't help it that you're short.
Oh, really? And of course, that's why you put it on the top shelf.
Also because it's at eye level with me and I have trouble finding things sometimes.
Fine. Of course, whatever. Get him the sugar.
How much?
How much does he want?
I didn't ask.
Ask him how much he wants!
Oh my God. Fine. How much you want? He said enough to make a cake.
A cake? What is that, like a cup of sugar?
I'm not a baker demon.
Just give him a cup of sugar, I'm sure it'll be fine!
How much is a cup?
We have measuring cups, don't we?
They're all metric. This is hell. You get metric in hell. That's part of being in hell.
God damn it, I knew there was a reason I shouldn't have come here.
To be fair, you were in Toronto. That's not much difference. What are you gonna do? Do I need to get the forms again?
Oh really, you're going to report me again?
Again, for the third time.
For what? What have I done to you this time?
You're turning me into an errand demon.
You're my secretary. You do errands.
I'm not a secretary. I'm an assistant. There's a difference.
Well, you would be assisting me by running errands.
I assist you in infernal matters. Getting you a latte is not an infernal matter. Unless we go to Starbucks. Then, yeah, that's pretty infernal.
Fine. We're going to Starbucks from now on.
Oh, God damn it.
Now just give him some sugar. Give him the whole bag. I really don't give a shit. Get him away from my house.
Fine.
Now get out of my office.
Fine. I'm leaving. File a report for you. I swear I will.
Yo, God's so lazy. He can't get tired, but he still won't work a 7-day week. Yo, God's such a drama queen. He killed himself over getting betrayed 4,000 years earlier. Yo, God's so bad at creation, he made this universe just for us, but then he forgot to fill it with air. Yo, God's so non-existent, when he does shit, he...
In here, he and other fellas back in that time, Cuvier, Steno...
Oh, Steno. Do you mean the Steno who died in 1686? You know, back in that time of Lyell's 1830 book. Is your view of history just creation, flood, Moses, Jesus, and then a bunch of crap, whatever, it's all the same shit up until the mid-20th century when you were born, or what?
Strata Smith and some of these guys, they invented the geologic column. How many have ever heard of the geologic column before? They say each of the layers is a different age, you know, Cenozoic, Mesozoic, Paleozoic, Archeozoic, all them Zoic boys. And they gave each layer of rock a name, like maybe you saw the movie Jurassic Park, and an age, and an index fossil. This was done in 1830.
Index fossils, yes. Distinct objects used to identify layers as having ages equal to each other, but not to decide what that age is. Geologists had been using them for quite a while before 1830, in fact, but they didn't assign absolute ages. And creationist viewers, that means an age that's stated with a number, and I hope that isn't still too complicated for you. Not to the rock layers, not even for the Earth at that time. Lyell, to take your prime example, concluded that the Earth must be very old, but he didn't try to assign an age to it, nor to rock layers. Hey, how bad did it hurt pushing that giant turd out of your ass?
This was done in 1830, way before there ever was a carbon dating or potassium argon dating or lead-208, lead-206, uranium-235, uranium-238. Didn't exist, folks. The dating text didn't exist.
Which, I suspect, is a big reason why geologists didn't assign ages to rock layers.
They just made up these numbers out of the clear blue sky.
You just made up those numbers out of the clear blue sky.
The geologic column is the Bible for the evolutionist.
Nah, geologic layers are a bit thick for toilet paper.
It can only be found one place in the world. The textbooks.
No way. Those textbooks all have such thick, crackly pages. Nah. Give me a nice soft page out of the KJV any day.
There's no geologic column, and they know it.
Aw, little Kenty, you're so cute. Okay, let's go through this very slowly. And let's replace the fossils with, let's say, Spider-Man action figures to take away the scary evolutionishness of it all. It doesn't matter at all whether the object that functions as an index is a fossil or an action figure anyway, because it'll work just the same way. And I'll try to keep it simple and keep out the complicated parts. So let's say that the whole world is covered in a bunch of layers of rock that were laid down very slowly. Now, let's say you pick any random town off the map. Let's say Union Center, South Dakota. I admit that's not a totally random choice on my part. I preached there once. There were 40 people in the whole town. 38 of them went to church. 2 of them were off whipping each other in a dungeon. And you go to Union Center and you find that there are 3 layers of rock, just to keep it nice and simple. In the bottom layer, there are Spider-Man action figures. In the middle layer, there are a bunch of Green Goblin action figures, and in the top layer, there are Scorpion action figures. And yeah, sometimes you'll find a Spider-Man in the Green Goblin layer, or maybe even in a Scorpion layer, but you'll never find a Scorpion lower than a Green Goblin, or a Green Goblin lower than a Spider-Man. And now let's say you head on east to Enning, South Dakota, and you look at the layers again. Here you have 3 layers again, but instead of having Spider-Man, then Green Goblin, then Scorpion, there's Green Goblin, then Scorpion, then Vulture. This doesn't really tell you much, but maybe it gets you thinking. So now let's say instead of heading east to White Owl, South Dakota, you head everywhere else in the world and check the layers, and as you do it, you notice that you never find a Green Goblin lower than a Spider-Man or a Vulture lower than a Scorpion. Not every place will have all the layers, but you have some layers everywhere, and they overlap with other layers in other places. Sometimes you might be missing, say, a Green Goblin layer, but the Scorpion layer will still be above the Spider-Man layer. So you start to draw them one on top of the other, probably in some sort of, column. Because at this point you have so many layers that it would be about impossible for it to be a coincidence, and so there pretty much has to be some reason that the layers are in that order. Now, what you draw is not going to be reflected directly any place in the world, but if you tell someone else to go around the world a second time and look at which action figures belong to which layers, their drawing is going to end up about the same as yours. So you see, Lil Candy, the fact that an abstract model of reality doesn't simply reflect the state of Union Center, South Dakota, or any other one location, doesn't mean it doesn't say something true about the world.
This fellow says, if there were a column of sediments, unfortunately, no such column exists.
Breaking news! According to a Kent Hovind quote mine, no columns of sediments exist anywhere. According to Mr. Hovind's quote mine, if there were a column of sediments, but no such column exists. Of course, if you bother to read the paragraph, you'll see that what that's actually referring to is an unconformity, a local feature where there's an age difference between 2 contacting strata showing that either erosion or a period with no deposition occurred, which refers in no way whatsoever to an abstract model such as the geologic column, but to something that occurs between specific rock layers in a specific place. So since it says nothing even related to what you're talking about, Kent, I don't see what this quote mine was supposed to achieve. Oh, who am I kidding? I know perfectly well what it was supposed to achieve. It's just that somehow I get shocked all over again every single time I notice how badly you suck at supporting your position.
The geologic column is a hoax. Does not exist. It is stupid.
Okay, we can just ignore how it works and call it a hoax because Union Center, South Dakota doesn't have every layer depicted. Fine, Bubba, fine. What's next? Are you going to say that the certificate issue on Lulu.com was really a hoax perpetrated by my evil hacker army to confuse computer illiterate Christians who want to buy your self-published book? Oh.
Those layers cannot be different ages.
There's really not much point in me trying to refute an assertion that you threw out at random without bothering to state a single reason you think it's true. Your asshole of a mouth is active today. Seems like a never-ending fabricated shit ribbon coming out. Got any more in there?
If the geologic column were all in one place, it would be 100 miles thick.
I was only asking rhetorically, but, thanks.
Didn't happen. By the way, if the geologic column were true, if you look at the side of Grand Canyon and see all these thousands of layers, why are there no erosion marks between the layers? Don't you think if one layer sat there for 10 million years waiting for the next one, it would rain once or twice? No erosion marks between the layers. Interesting. Oh, something to consider anyway. Oh, something to consider anyway. Yeah, we never
You excel at your job as a professional dunce. So well, in fact, that you often ask a question so vague and non-specific that I don't know what the fuck you're even trying to ask. I'm really impressed at how good you are at being bad at asking questions. Okay, so let me make up a question and hope it's somewhere close to whatever the hell you actually want to know. I don't think it counts as a straw man if I admit it's a shot in the dark, does it? Okay, I'll guess that you're asking, let's say, you're asking why the layers in the Grand Canyon are perfectly flat and show absolutely no imperfections on top that could be the result of erosion factors. And the answer is that they're not, because we're not in a computer game. And I mean, just a few sentences ago, you quote mined something about unconformities. Didn't you read it to find out what that meant? Okay, next clip.
Those layers are all deposited very rapidly, and I think we can demonstrate that scientifically. If you take a jar of dirt, put some water in it, and shake it up, and set it down, it'll settle into layers for you automatically. It just takes a few minutes. It's called hydrologic sorting. The gravels go to the bottom, and then the sands and the silts and the clays. It'll sort just like that, folks. Go home and do it with a jar. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Wow, that hydrologic sorting thing is pretty interesting. So next, you're going to use that principle to demonstrate scientifically that all the rock layers on Earth were deposited very rapidly during Noah's flood, I guess. Presumably by demonstrating that the lower layer is always gravel, and the next layer is all sand, and the next is silt, and the next is clay, therefore making hydrologic sorting a likely explanation, and putting to shame all those geologists and anyone else with eyeballs who's looked at those layers, who somehow are so terrible at observation that they not only failed to notice any such order to the layers, but actually thought they found layers of similar material separated by layers of totally different material all the time. I look forward to the revolutionary observations you'll present in the next sentence.
Years ago, I was preaching in Union Center, South Dakota.
Oh right, never mind. I forgot that supporting your claims is against your religion. Oh hey, you preached in Union Center too? Well, hot diggity, what a coinkydink.
Union Center is right there. It's not even on the map.
I know you've been out of the game for a while, but you gotta start using Google Maps, brah.
There are 40 people in the whole town. 38 of them came to church. I don't know where the other 2 were.
I'll tell you when you're older.
The preacher said, hey, let's go down to River City, South Dakota. They've got a museum down there with a bunch of dinosaur bones. I said, all right, I like dinosaurs, let's go. So we all drove down to the museum. The guy met us at the door. He said, would you like me to give you a tour? We said, that would be great, sir. The first place we stopped on the tour was the geologic time scale, the big chart. They got it behind glass so the kids can't touch it. You know, this is holy, sacred.
Or maybe they just don't want to blow their budget replacing their printed displays after your kid gets its snotty, greasy mitt marks all over them. It's alright, though. I see you still want to make science seem religious, and this is really the best you got, so I'll let you have it. But since I'm on this topic for probably the last time, I should point out something that I missed in episode 4. Do you remember this clip from episode 2?
But see, both views, creation and evolution, are inherently religious. You have to believe in creation or believe in evolution.
And how about this clip from episode 4?
Well, anything inside that circle is religious speculation. It is stupid.
I can't believe I didn't pick up on it before, but thanks for calling creationism stupid.
The guide said, now, boys and girls, this layer of rock right here is about 70 million years old. My daughter was 12 at the time. She raised her hand. She said, mister, how do you know that layer is 70 million years old? He said, well, honey, we tell the age of the layers by what kind of fossils we find in them. They're called index fossils. Oh, she said, thank you, sir. We walked around the other side of the dinosaur, and we're standing over here, and the guide said, now, folks, these bones you're looking at are about 100 million years old. My daughter raised her hand again. She said, mister, how do you know those bones are 100 million years old? He said, honey, that's a good question. We tell the age of the bones by which layer they come from. She said, excuse me, sir, but when we were standing over there, you told me you knew the age of the layers by the bones, and now you're telling me you know the age of the bones by the layers. She said, isn't that circular reasoning?
Sounds like a smart kid. Did you make sure to beat that out of her?
When one of my sons was 7 years old, we went to the dentist, and the dentist said, Mr. Hovind, this kid has a cavity. I said, yes, sir, I knew about it. Are you talking about the big one up here, or just one in his tooth? He said, well, just the one in his tooth. The only one we can fix. I said, okay, doc, let's fix it. So the dentist said, now listen, son, you're going to have to sit still, hold real still, open your mouth real wide, and I'm going to give you a shot. You're going to give me a shot? Yeah, calm down, calm down. I'm going to give you a shot. You're going to drill the bad stuff out and fill it with silver, and you'll be out of here in no time. No problem. Well, he tried to sit still. But when the dentist pulled out that 12-foot needle and poured in 10 gallons of lidocaine, he freaked out, lost control, kicking, screaming. Have you ever seen a kid do that in the dentist chair? Maybe you've done it yourself a time or two. He wanted out of there now. So the doctor called the nurse, and she came in and sat on him, and I sat on him, and the doctor sat on him, and we tried to hold him still, but man, you got to hold real still for that stuff. And finally the dentist was getting all nervous. He said, man, I can't do this. He's got to hold still. I said, Doc, let me take him outside and talk to him for a few minutes. Maybe I can calm him down. We went out to the van, sat in the back seat of the old Chevy van. I said, son, I love you very much. He said, I know, Daddy. I said, son, I told you to sit still. You did not sit still. What happens when you disobey, Daddy? He said, you get a spanking. I said, that's correct. Bend over. And boy, did I give him a spanking. It was a doozy. A few minutes later, the smoke is rising off his hind end, and the tears are coming down his cheeks, and the pearls are coming out of his nostrils. I mean, the whole thing. I said, now listen, son, we're going to go back in the dentist office, and you're going to sit in that chair. And if you wiggle one time, I'm not going to yell at you. I'm just calmly going to take you back out to the van and give you 2 spankings like you just got. 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 And then we're going to go back in the dentist office, and if you wiggle, I'm going to bring you back out and give you 3 spankings in a row like you just got. And we're going to go back and forth all day until I get tired. And I played tennis for years, son. I have an excellent forehand smash, as you well know. I don't think I'll get tired for a while. You know, folks, we went back in the dentist's office. That kid sat in the chair, opened his mouth, grabbed the handles, and didn't move a muscle. I don't think he even breathed for 20 minutes. Boy, the doctor drilled it out, filled it up. We were headed out the door. And the dentist said, Mr. Hovind, come here, please. I thought, uh-oh, what did I do now? He said, listen, Mr. Hovind, I don't know what you said to that kid outside, but I'd like you to work for me around here. I said, no, sir, you don't want me working for you around here, man. The HEW would have me locked up the rest of my life. You know, the difference, when he was in the dentist chair the second time, he was still scared of the dentist. That had not changed. But something had changed. Now, he was more scared of me. Great psychological difference. He's more scared of me than anything in the world. That's the way I wanted it.
You're wrong because you're a piece of shit. Oh wait, no you're not. That would be an ad hominem fallacy. No. You're wrong because of all the reasons I've painstakingly explained throughout this series, and also, you're a piece of shit. That's not an ad hominem, it's an insult. A far too gentle insult. So to all the Bubba fans out there who've accused me of an ad hominem fallacy for slinging insults, you're a moron. No, I've used that already. You're an idiot. No. Dipshit? Asshat. Imbecile. Ignoramus. Dumbass. Buffoon. Dumbbell. Dolt? Simpleton. Pendleton. Numbskull. Nincompoop. Muttonhead, nitwit, stupid-faced, jerk-ass, fool-twit, blockhead, bonehead, cretinous, dimwit, dunce. Ugh! Why aren't there more ways to tell someone how stupid they are?
What's this obsession you have with calling people stupid?
It's how I fill the God-shaped hole in my heart. Whoa, wait a minute. I feel kind of weird.
What's wrong?
It's almost like I'm being, I don't know, beamed or something. Hey, wait a minute. Am I being beamed or something?
Whoa, weird.
Don't eat me! Eat her! She's more tender! Look! Psst.
Thanks, but I'm not hungry right now. Maybe later.
Huh. That was weird.
You told me you knew the age of the layers by the bones, and now you're telling me you know the age of the bones by the layers. She said, isn't that circular reasoning?
So it's supposed to be the rocks date the fossils and the fossils date the rocks. So we know rock A is 1 million years old because we know fossil B is 1 million years old, and we know fossil B is 1 million years old because we know rock A is 1 million years old. And you're absolutely right, that would be circular reasoning. Is that really what anyone is doing? And of course the answer is no. As usual, as we've seen all through this series so far, the confusion comes from your total lack of either ability or desire to accurately understand what's going on. Let's see. Use fossils to identify the layers as roughly equal in age. Then date the fossils and the rocks around them using radiometric dating. See if they match up to both each other and to the apparent layer order. The order and the dates are thus cross-confirmed. Since a large number of such cross-confirmed cases would be almost impossible by mere coincidence, the order and the dates and the fossil's position in the layers can all be considered causally linked until evidence is found that they aren't. In other words, if you can establish to a high degree of confidence that the order is as it is because of the dates and not just along with the dates, then you can use the status of a layer to tell you something about a fossil and vice versa. That is not what circular reasoning is. The process of figuring out one thing, figuring out another thing, figuring out a link between them, and then using that link to solve future cases is perfectly reasonable. If you don't know how to do that, you're missing a critical tool for understanding the world around you, which would explain a lot.
I thought, wow, a chip off the old block. That guide had the strangest look on his face. It was almost as if he were thinking.
Is that supposed to be a drawing of you? Is that how you see yourself?
He looked back at my daughter. He said, you know, you're right. That is circular reasoning. I never thought of that before. Folks, geologic column is a joke. It doesn't exist.
You know, Bubba, even if no dates were assigned to anything, the order of the layers would still apply. And even if there were no fossils whatsoever, the dates obtained from radiometric dating would still apply. You have a lot of work to do explaining why those two match up so well. If all the rocks are the same age and were dumped at the same time by a worldwide flood, the dates obtained radiometrically should be all over the place or all the same. And yet somehow they're very consistent with the proposed order of the layers. What a staggeringly improbable coincidence if your scenario is correct.
I'll just give you a couple of quotes here.
Oh great, more quote mines. Hey, didn't I already explain to you why quote mines are totally worthless in making your case? Whatever, go ahead.
This guy says, the rocks do date the fossils, but the fossils date the rocks more accurately.
Oh wow, it's this guy again. This guy must be a real genius because this guy keeps popping up as an authority in your videos. Well, now I know that this guy said it, I totally care. Oh wait, I don't. Go back to quote mining Stephen Jay Gould. At least you find him important enough to bother saying his name.
This geologic column contains limestone scattered all throughout the geologic column. I like to ask him the question, I say, fellows, you have limestone scattered all through this column. How do you know the age? It's all limestone. I mean, if I handed you a piece of limestone, how would you know if it's 100 million year old Jurassic limestone or 600 million year old Cambrian limestone? I mean, how would you tell the difference?
Right! You could use radiometric dating, but that's not something everyone has access to. And that's why all these creationists who show you a rock with what looks like a human footprint or a fossil and tell you it was found in the wrong place have such a problem. They didn't leave it in place or document it in place, so there's no practical way to verify that it was found in an odd place relative to its surroundings, and they're certainly not going to send it to a lab for testing, and even if they did, how would the lab know how to calibrate their test?
There's only one way they can tell, by the index fossils. That's how it's done, folks. That is stupid. Because those fossils don't count for anything, as we'll see in a minute.
If someone hands you a chunk of rock with a fossil in it, you can at least get a pretty likely estimate of its position in the record. For example, horse fossils won't show up with trilobites, which is another problem with your hydrologic sorting idea. Of course, you can try to present evidence of a horse fossil and a trilobite fossil right next to each other in the same layer, but I think you'll run into some difficulty. I guess that floodwater had a bit of OCD and decided to keep its fossils from getting mixed up and its bookcase from getting de-alphabetized.
They tell the kids each of these layers is a different age. 100 million, 200 million, 300 million, real impressive, huge numbers. Now, Charlie Darwin did not like round numbers. He wanted to be more precise. He said the Weldian deposits are 306,662,400 years old. Now, okay, Charlie, I think that's stupid.
Why are you quoting Eric von Fanga instead of Darwin himself?
What is it with Rex?
In Origin of Species on page 287 of my copy of the first edition, chapter 9 at least, Darwin performs a very rough estimate for a process that he's interested in. He calls it getting some crude notion on the subject. It turned out not to be a very good one, and it was modified and then removed in later editions, but that's irrelevant to your claim that he was stupid for not using round numbers. See, he performs a calculation for the amount of time required for the denudation of the Weald based on a 500-foot cliff losing 1 inch per century. The Weald average is 1,100 feet thick, and the distance from the northern to the southern downs is 22 miles. So 22 miles divided by 500 feet over 1,100 feet times 100 years, or 1,393,920 inches divided by 0.45 repeating times 100 years equals 306,662,400, and there's your crazy non-round number. Now, I'm sure it's utterly astonishing to you that a calculation might have a result that isn't rounded to the nearest 100 million, and pay attention, there will be a test. Calculations often wield not very round numbers, and people perform the rounding after to make the numbers easier to say and use. Which is why, after stating the full result of the calculation, he rounded it to, and I quote, say 300 million years. Or in other words, he was just fine with round numbers and used one. Considering that you've quoted The Origin of Species in your speech already, I know you have access to the book, so you really are without excuse for not realizing this contradiction. Maybe that's why you decided to use Eric instead of Charlie, eh? To try and make your tone-deaf attempt at mockery look just a little less desperate and pathetic?
Those layers are not different ages, folks. All over the world we find petrified trees standing up, running through multiple rock layers. Now, if you get a petrified tree standing up, running through different rock layers, I don't think it's smart to say those layers are vastly different ages.
Neither do geologists, which is why they don't and haven't done for 150 years at least. Update your knowledge, Bubba.
Petrified trees in the vertical position They find them all over the world. Okay, here's one from Alabama. Come out of a seam of coal, through 20 feet of rock, into another seam of coal.
Alright, let's take these one at a time.
Petrified trees in the vertical position. They find them all over the world, okay?
Neato. Not sure how it's meant to support your point, and you don't seem about to explain it, so on to the next one. Alright, this isn't the Alabama one, it's from Joggins, Nova Scotia. These specimens were described in 1868 by John William Dawson in Chapter 12 of Acadian Geology. And of course, while the roots may grow down into a pre-existing coal seam, the top never proceeds up through a coal seam. The picture you showed, of course, clearly does not show the top passing into a coal seam. In fact, there's no coal in sight. This one's the Alabama one. It was taken during a field trip of the Birmingham Paleontological Society in Walker County, Alabama. The URL you provided didn't work anymore, so I found the updated one and linked it below. Of course, the text says nothing whatsoever about coal because, as with the last image, there's no coal in the image. There are these dark spots, which I suppose maybe you thought were coal, but which are actually those reliable whack-job bafflers known as shadows.
They found about 3 dozen of them, I think, in that one little coal mine, one little area, while they're digging the coal out. Petrified trees standing up.
That's really interesting and all, but are you going to bother trying to link this to your point in any way?
Cookeville, Tennessee. They found a bunch of them. This one's 30 feet tall, standing up.
Okay, you probably intend to prattle on about this for a while, so to allow me to skip your intolerable lip flapping, I'll just make it really clear that I'm aware of vertically fossilized trees, and that deposition can occur rapidly when a flood or mudslide occurs, or slower but not unreasonably slowly in swamps, and that in large events, trees can even be carried along with sediment and laid upside down. You even mentioned dam breaches earlier. Don't you think maybe geologists are well aware of the possibility of a breach carrying large amounts of sediment over a treed area in a small amount of time and possibly even uprooting the trees to deposit them somewhere else later? A flood need not cover the entire globe to have explanatory power, you know.
They dug up a guy, they buried this doctor in Tennessee. 14 years later, his wife died. When they went to dig the grave, water soaked into her grave. And they said, oh, we can't bury Grandma there. So they dug a hole on the other side, water soaked in. So they dug a hole and buried Grandma somewhere else. And then the kids got worried about Grandpa, and so they went and dug up his grave. The arms had rotted off, but the rest of the body had petrified in 14 years, turned to stone from water running through the coffin.
I noticed that you haven't provided a single identifiable detail of this load of anecdotal horsepucky. So
Sauce, please, because I think you're full of shit.
Those layers are not different ages. They all formed in one big flood in the days of Noah.
So either all sediment everywhere was deposited in one worldwide flood that covered the highest mountain 4,000 years ago, or no rapid deposition has ever occurred anywhere ever. Those are the options. Apparently local floods are just a silly myth. Take note, kids. This is your brain on religion.
We're going to give you some more evidence that evolution is stupid. Now, if you want to believe in it, that's perfectly fine. I don't care what you believe in. But the devil is laughing at you for believing in that.
Nah. Sure, evolutionists are funny for not realizing the universe popped into existence in 1972, but they're not nearly as funny as you are.
If you want to believe you came from a rock, well, you just enjoy yourself.
Not a rock. Probably Iran, actually. Haven't you ever looked at my About page?
God made this world. God loves you. God has a plan for your life. And if you don't want it, well...
Oh, great. Here it comes.
If you'd like to find out how to go to heaven, come see me. I'll be glad to show you.
Well, I wouldn't mind. Yahweh doesn't really come visit much these days, and I'm kind of pining for the old times, you know? But I don't think you're the right guy to show me how to get there. In fact, last I heard, Lucifer had made some particularly entertaining arrangements just for you.
It's not because I'm good.
Oh boy, is it ever not. Have you ever thought about trying not to be a total shitheel for once in your miserable life? You know, just for a little change of pace?
If I get what I deserve, I'm in serious trouble.
Let's see, this speech is from 2001, so... yeah, you'd been up to some shady stuff for a while by then.
I have not filed any income tax in 28 years. If there's a law requiring me to file something, I would like to see it. I have the entire Internal Revenue Code right here, thoroughly marked up, indexed. You're welcome to check out anything. I know the subject pretty well. I've been a long-time student of this topic, as my son would be glad to tell you. This is something I read a lot on, because I want very badly to be right with God. The Bible says, render to Caesar that which is Caesar's. I agree. It does not say render to Fred that which is Caesar's. Okay, if something belongs to Caesar, I'll give it to him. I'm not against that at all.
I guess you knew what had happened once you were found out.
But I've been forgiven.
Kent, you haven't been forgiven, you've served your sentence. They're different.
By the blood of Jesus Christ.
Oh, that! Oh, I was confused. Nah, it won't work. I already tried that. I swiped some of it when he was passed out after one of Lucifer's blood orgies. Didn't help. Got anything else?
You can have the same thing.
Aha. Whatever, just another one pretending to have all the answers when he doesn't. Okay, I gotta go get that baby. I'll be right back.
After the break, we'll show you some more things that make evolution stupid.
No, Lil Kent, you don't set yourself up for disappointment. Let's try to find one thing and go from there, okay? Alright, baby Beelzebub, let's get you fed. Here you are, come on, come on. It's Christ blood. You like Christ blood.
You're a fucktard. Orange you can't. You're a fucktard. Orange you can't. I don't think you know the shit that he believes is just a fucking joke. What is being said? People out there buying the shit he preaches.
It's okay, Rock. I don't hate you. I really don't. I promise. I just said that for the show. You know I have to say bad things for the show sometimes. I'm so sorry. So sorry.
Did you put it in the camera while I was doing my bit? This is tiring, you know. I gotta hold my face here.
Record. For example, horse fossils
You need to turn the light off.
Oh, shit. You can cut that out.
Right.
Cool.